Oh, come on. Good morning. It's Sunday, you know. Now, this is quite a shift from the Trinity to the King of the North. And obviously there are reasons for the topic. Daniel 11 has become once again a topic of discussion among many Adventists, and particularly verses 40 through 45. And I'm going to concentrate on that passage. This section of the prophecy of Daniel 11, verses 40 through 45, has been in the past a matter of analysis by Adventists. And now we have an interpretation that is circulating in North America, and I'm sure that here also in Canada, where the king of the north is, the king of the south is identified with the Muslim Islamic world. And according to this interpretation, Islam is going to attack the Pope, and then the Pope is going to call on America to help him to attack the Islamic world and destroy Islam. And then the papacy, the king of the north, will go against the people of God. This interpretation, there's a whole book on it, is been presented in Adventist churches and has attracted quite a bit of attention. Some time ago, the biblical research thought that it would be good for us to look into this, because we considered the interpretation that the prophecy of Daniel 11, 40 through 45 as a prediction of a war between Islam and the papacy and the extermination of Islam. We understood that this interpretation could be very, very risky and could create serious problems in the religious world of the Islam and even Christianity. And keeping in mind that we have Adventists in the Muslim world, and that there could be reactions that we cannot anticipate, we decided to look into the passage and to provide to the church another option, another way of looking and interpreting the passage. This is not the final interpretation. It's just that we thought it would be good for us to have another possible reading. And even if the Islamic world becomes aware of this interpretation, they could also look at this other one and say, oh, well, this is not necessarily about Islam. So I'm going to share with you an understanding of the prophecy. And I'm going to tell you how I reached the conclusions I'm going to share with you. And I will leave it with you to think about it and pray about it. I'm going to read the text. Let's go to Daniel 11. This is a Bible conference, so we should open the Bible. And if you have a Bible in electronic form, you know, there's nothing like this, okay? There's nothing like this. I'm sorry for you who carry the Bible here, you know. There's nothing like this. Am I right or am I wrong? You tell me. I mean, there's nothing like preaching with the Bible open. It does something to the heart. And then you go, the Bible says, oh, come on. No. I don't have time to tell you a few more things, but for now, that's enough. Anyway, I'm going to read the text. You have it? 11 verses 40 through 45. Now, my reading is going to be slightly different in some cases from yours. I'm providing for you from the text my own translation. So it's very similar, but in some cases it's slightly different. There we go, verse 40. At the time of the end, the king of the south will wage war against him, and the king of the north will storm against him with chariots and horsemen and many ships, and he will enter many lands and will overflow and pass through them. And he will enter the beautiful land, and many will fall. But these will be saved or rescued from his hand: Edom, Moab, and the foremost of the sons of Ammon. And he will stretch out his hand against many lands, and the land of Egypt will not be able to escape. And he will gain control over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. And Libyans and Ethiopians will follow on his footsteps. But news from the east and the north will horrify him, and he will go out with great anger to destroy and exterminate many. And he will place his tent, the royal tent, between the sea and the splendorous holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and there will not be any help for him. It's an intriguing passage. Did you understand that passage? It's what I call an apocalyptic narrative, a prophecy given to us as a narrative. So this is what I did in trying to interpret the text. I read the text, and I read the text, and I read the text. I don't know how many times. I have a little advantage in that I know a little Hebrew, so I use the original. And I read the text, and I wrote down notes. And I read it in the context of chapter 11 and Daniel, and I listened to the text. See, because the text speaks to us if we listen. So I'm reading the text. And all of a sudden, it hit me that these 5 passages contain terminology and images and ideas found in another biblical narrative. See, you have to read the Bible. That's why we say read the Bible, study the Bible, read it, because you get so acquainted with it that when you are reading a passage, all of a sudden you say, this is similar to what I read somewhere else. So I'm reading the passage, and I said, this is similar to another story that is told in the Bible. Do you know which one? The story of the Israelite exodus from Egypt. So I immediately began to compare the two. And I said, oh, yeah. And then the next question is, why? Why will Daniel use the language and images of the Exodus narrative in this story? And I came to a conclusion. Then I was reading, and then I realized that many of the ideas found in these verses, 5 verses, are also found in another book in the New Testament. Can you guess? The book of Revelation. So I found that this passage was a kind of a bridge. It took me to the past to make a connection with a particular purpose, but it also took me to the future, to the book of Revelation. And I concluded that this passage is a summary of what is going to be further developed in the book of Revelation. And what I'm going to share with you today is those findings. Exodus, Revelation, the reason, the vision. The advantage of what I'm going to share with you is that I don't have to go to the newspapers to speculate. I have the Bible on both sides, allowing the Bible to interpret for us the text. Is that okay with you? That's all I have. If you don't like it, I don't have anything else. So let's begin. And I'm going to rush because this is, you have to follow me. Don't go to sleep or you will wake up wondering, what is Angel talking about? The parallels. Let me begin with verse 40. Verse 40 is very important. It introduces the two, the king of the north and the king of the south. But it does something very important for us. It dates the prophecy. Did you notice that? At the very beginning, what does it say? In the time of the end. In our interpretation of the book of Daniel, we believe that the time of the end began at a particular historical moment. Anybody remembers? The end of the 1260 years in 1798. I'm assuming that you know about these prophecies, okay? 1798. That's when the time of the end begins. So this prophecy is to be fulfilled, or was going to begin to be fulfilled at the beginning of the time of the end. So we can date it. This has to do with events happening after 1798. Let's go to the parallels. Very simple things. I'm going to list them for you. Number one, in this section, you find the phrase, the land of Egypt. If you go to Exodus, this phrase is used again and again and again. It's used in the book of Exodus more often than in any other book of the Old Testament. So there's a link there. Number two, you find the hand of the king of the north against nations and against Egypt. In Exodus, there is another hand against the land of Egypt. You remember? The hand of whom? The hand of the Lord against Egypt. In Daniel, you have the language of water. And in the original, the attack of the king of the north to the king against the king of the south is described as water, flooding, water cascading through the land, destroying everything. Well, you have the same in the Exodus. Who defeated the Egyptians? The Lord did. What did he use? Water. That was the army of the Lord. He opened the sea, and the Israelites went through, and the Egyptian army said, "Oh, we can go through too." And that was the end. You find reference in this passage to chariots and horsemen, right? This is something that, again, is mentioned closely associated with Egypt. They were very proud of their chariots and horsemen. Number, 5? The passage mentions Edom, Moab, and Ammon, right? The Israelites left Egypt. They were close to the land of Canaan, and they found there the land of Edom, Moab, and Ammon. And they said, no, you're not going to pass through our land. And some of the leaders said to Moses, we have to go and attack them. And what did the Lord say? Don't touch them. This is exactly what happened in Daniel 11, right? The king of the north is not able to destroy or attack them. 6. The king of the north took the silver, the gold, and the treasures from the land of Egypt. You remember in the narrative what happened? The Israelites are leaving, and what did he do? They took the silver, the gold, the same terminology, and the treasures of Egypt with them. So you see the connection? See, this is when you begin to say, wait, what is going on here? What is the purpose of this? Number 7, the Israelites left the land of Egypt and went to the holy mountain to meet with the Lord. Remember? Now, the king of the north leaves Egypt and is heading to a holy mountain too. Number 8, the Lord said to the Israelites, I was very patient with the inhabitants of Canaan. I gave them more than 400 years to repent. They haven't, so go and exterminate them. Now, the one who leaves Egypt, the king of the north, is going to Canaan also to exterminate. In this case, he's trying to exterminate the people of God. So, you have the parallels. So, what is this? What is happening here? The Exodus from Egypt is the most powerful revelation of God found in the Old Testament. It's a majestic revelation of the power of God, beginning when he appeared to Moses, going down to Egypt, coming out of Egypt on Mount Sinai to the people of Israel. He revealed himself as the one who had control over the nations of the earth, the one who could judge the nations, the one who can establish a kingdom that is powerful enough to be used by him to achieve his purposes. Now, we have the king of the north. And what he's doing, this is what I draw from this parallel. He's been described as pretending to be God. He's trying to do now what God did to Egypt. God descended, right? He went to Egypt, destroyed Egypt, really. Took the money of the Egyptians, gave it to his people. Then the Lord left Egypt and went to Canaan to exterminate. This is the picture that you have in Exodus. Am I right? This is exactly what you have here, right? The king of the north goes down to Egypt, destroys Egypt, take the money, and then what he does? There's an Exodus again. He leaves and he's going where? To the land of Canaan. So somebody is pretending to be somebody else. This is what Daniel is telling us. The Lord is telling us with this parallel. This king is pretending to be the Lord. Now, let's look a little more carefully at the narrative. And what it tells us. When the king of the north goes down, he passes through the glorious land. This is the land of Israel, the people of God. He passes through them. And there is a reaction to it. The text says that some fell. Some of the people of God were shaken and fell. Now, the king of the north is not going to attack the people of God. That's not his plan. He's going to attack Egypt. But in order to reach Egypt, he has to go through the land of the people of God and does some damage. But his intention is to attack Egypt. In the process, some of the people of God are damaged. Now, Edom, Moab, Ammon are not taken by the king of the north. This is a clear parallel with the Exodus narrative. And this is an important matter because these three nations are used in the Old Testament to represent the remnant of the nations who at the end were going to join the Messianic kingdom of God and become part of the people of God. So that the prophecy is saying, don't touch this because from the nations, many will not be controlled by the king of the north. They will escape and they will join the people of God, the Messianic kingdom. Now, I'm not giving you the passages because there are many and I don't have much time. This paper is available. You can get it in through BRI. We'll talk about that later. But the idea here is these three nations represent other nations, the remnant of which, according to the Old Testament, will join the remnant of the people of God at the end. And the king of the north descends and is victorious. He takes everything from the Egyptians. And the Libyans and the Ethiopians are mentioned because the Libyans and the Ethiopians, Libya and Ethiopia, were the borders, the southeast border of Egypt. And what this is telling you is that the king of the north was so effective that he took all the land of Egypt down to the borders and beyond. This is the picture, the narrative that we have in our hands. So he has total victory over the enemy, Egypt. But when he is beginning to enjoy this wonderful victory, news arrived from the east and the north. News arrived. The east and the north are not simply the directions from which the enemy came to attack Israel. These two poles, north, east, north, they are also the directions from which the Lord in the Old Testament was depicted as coming to save his people. You have this famous passage in Isaiah 41:25 talking about Cyrus as the Messiah. I have stirred up one from the north. He comes, one from the rising sun, who calls on my name. He treads on rulers as if they were mortar, as if he were a potter treading the clay. He's talking about Cyrus. People of Israel were in the east, exile. Then the Lord raised a king to bring them back. The liberation of the people of God. And this horrifies the king. This means that the people of God had not submitted themselves to the king of the north. And now there is a proclamation of freedom from them. But this means more than that. According to Psalm 48, verse 1, the true king of the north is the Lord. There is a true king of the north, the Lord. You remember Isaiah 14? This cherub wants to go to the mountain of the Lord on the north and place himself there as God. Well, this is what you have here. But the passage in Isaiah says that the throne of God is on the north. And here on earth, somebody is pretending to be the king of the north. And now these two kings are going to meet each other. And this is what this king is, the king of the north is horrified by the idea that he has to face the king of the north. And he gets ready, put his army together, and they head to the land of Canaan, to Mount Zion, to conquer the mountain of the Lord, to have complete control. And if the king, if he were able to conquer that mountain, then he would be the absolute king on planet Earth. But something happened. What happened? Well, what happened is there was no war. And that's the good news. He went there, he surrounded the mountain, and he's ready to attack. And what happens at that moment? The nations that supported him withdrew the support. And there was no one to help him. Man, the connection with Revelation is amazing. Withdrew the support, and the king is left alone. He attempted to destroy the people of God. And finally, the support was taken from him. Now, I believe that we can decode this prophecy using Revelation. But before we go to Revelation, let me say something about Egypt. Because Egypt is mentioned here, is the king of the north, of the south. Keep in mind that in this narrative, what happened was the king of the south, Egypt, attacked the king of the north. And apparently took him by surprise and defeated him. And the king of the north needs time to put together his army. And he puts together his army, and then he goes against the king of the south. This is what you have. In the Bible, the Old Testament, Egypt is what I call an ambivalent symbol. What I mean by that is that Egypt is, in some cases, a symbol of something good. No? It's a symbol of food. There was famine in the land, and Abraham got benefit. There was famine in the land, and Jacob and his sons went to Egypt and received from Egypt food. And not only that, the Egyptians were so happy, said, come and join us and take some of the land and live here. You know, this is a good symbol, a symbol of prosperity. But it is also a symbol of evil. It's a symbol of enslavement. It's a symbol of a power that oppresses the people of God. But above above everything else, it is a symbol of pride. Moses went to the king and said to him, Yahweh is telling you, let my people go. And Pharaoh said to him, could you repeat that again? Who is telling me? Yahweh. I don't know anything about Yahweh. I don't need Yahweh. I don't care about him. You see, I have my own gods, very powerful. Look how they have blessed us. I have my army. I don't need Yahweh. I don't care about him. No. Ellen G. White would say, Egypt is a symbol of atheism. People who don't care about the biblical God, who don't believe in him. We would say today, secularism. People, they don't care. Some of them may believe in God, but they don't care about the biblical God. Even non-Christian religions who do not believe in the biblical God are incorporated in this group. People don't care about God. You see the contrast between the king of the north and the king of the south. You see the contrast? The king of the south doesn't care. Who is Yahweh? I don't believe in him. The king of the north is the opposite. He says, I want to be like him. I want to be like him. So this king is making difficult for this king to be like God. So this king has to destroy this one. That's what you have in the prophecy. Let's go to Revelation and see the parallels. The first one. The king of the north is mimicking God, is pretending to be God. Do you have that in the book of Revelation? See, at this point, the topic of the Trinity and this prophecy come together. In the book of Revelation, there is an unholy Trinity. There is a Trinity that is pretending to be the true Trinity. And we call them, the three members of this Trinity, we call them the beast from the sea, the beast from the earth, and the dragon. In Revelation, these three powers act and behave like God, but they are not God. The dragon, if you compare the dragon to the Trinity, in most cases, the parallel is with the Father. See, the dragon has a throne and power. The beast from the earth is from the water. Is most of the time a parallel for Jesus. See, this beast received power and the throne from the dragon. Jesus received power and the throne from the Father. You see the parallels? I don't have time to develop all of them. And the beast from the earth, the best parallel is probably the Holy Spirit, because it makes miracles, causes fire to come, and is called a false prophet. So there you have two trinities. What was a simple thing in Daniel, one symbol, a king, pretending to be like God. In Revelation, he said, let me tell you, this king stands for more than a person. This king stands for mystical Babylon. Mystical Babylon. Number 2. The king of the north is going to exterminate the people of God. Do we have that in Revelation? Of course we do. The only two passages in the Bible, apocalyptic passages, prophecy, that this deal or announce an attack against the people of God to destroy them is Daniel 11 and Revelation 13. Remember Revelation 13? The death decree. If you don't have the mark of the beast or the name, you're going to be exterminated. You have these parallels. Amazing. Then I saw, Revelation 16, 13, and 14, then I saw 3 evil spirits that look like frogs. How many he saw? 3. Trinity. They came out of the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the mouth of the false prophet. There you have the Trinity. But they are spirit of demons performing miracles, and they go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them for the battle of the God Almighty. That's what you have. Number 3, Mount Zion. The king of the north is going to attack the people of God on Mount Zion. Now, once you finish chapter 13, Revelation 13, the Revelation 14, Revelation 13 ends when the fourth Trinity are going to extinguish the people of God. Revelation 14 says they won't do it. Why? Because my people is on Mount Zion. spiritually speaking, on Mount Zion. That is to say, under the protection of God. The parallels, in my opinion, are amazing. Amazing. The result of the attack. In Daniel, what happens? The support is withdrawn. The king finds himself unable to accomplish his plan. If you go to Revelation, the mystical Babylon formed by these three powers, what happens at the end? Well, what happens at the end is that Babylon breaks down in three pieces again and is unable to stand together. The forces of evil are going to attack the people of God. There is no battle. When they see Christ, they stop it. And they turn against each other. What was a simple statement in Daniel is further developed in Revelation. Some escape, according to Daniel 11, some will escape. Where do you find that in Revelation? Revelation chapter 18, verse 4. God's people, many of God's people are still in Babylon. And there is a shout, "Come out of Babylon, my people." There are people of God in all religions, in Protestantism, in Catholicism. There are people of God even among the seculars. Could you believe that? And at the critical moment, they will escape. This is what Daniel was talking about. And Revelation is telling you something wonderful is going to happen at the end. People are going to escape from Babylon and join the biblical truth. Number 6, the king of the south initially attacked the king of the north. And then the king of the north reacted. Do we have that in Revelation? Yes. Revelation 13 talks about the beast receiving a mortal wound. Remember that? And the text doesn't say who inflicted the wound. But it says that it happened at the end of the 1260 years. If you go to chapter 11, at the end of the 1260 years, there is a beast coming from the abyss. And it is identified as Egypt and Sodom. And historic interpreters of the Bible, the prophecies, identify that beast with France, the French Revolution, the promotion of rationalism and atheism. Are you seeing the connection with Daniel? Wish we could have more time to develop these things. Ellen G. White says that what was initiated by France, rationalism, atheism, moral corruption, because where you have atheism, you have moral corruption. Ellen G. White says that this will spread throughout the world. She says it will involve the whole world in a struggle similar to that which convulsed France. Today, secularism, atheism rules. Are you having difficulties baptizing people? Secularism. Are we having difficulties winning souls for the Lord in the non-Christian world? We do. It's an enemy, a very powerful enemy out there. And I'll tell you in a moment how this is going to be defeated. News from the east. In Revelation, the one who comes from the east is Jesus. He's the one who's coming. You have in Daniel, number 8, an initial attack against the people of God. When the king was going down, it did some damage to the people of God. The book of Revelation says that mystical Babylon will attack the people of God 2 times. The first one, Revelation 13 and 14. The first one is through miracles. They will perform such a majestic miracles that the whole world will follow them. But the intention is to shaken up God's people through the miracles. And they will be so powerful that many Adventists will be shaken. Ellen G. White says, these works of apparent healing will bring Seventh-day Adventists to the test. Many who have had great light will fail to walk in the light. This is, you're going to see the supernatural active. This is the most powerful deception of the enemy. Ellen G. White develops this even more. She says that Satan will impersonate Seventh-day Adventists who died in the faith, in the service of the Lord. And they will come back and they say, well, we were wrong. And then finally he's going to impersonate who? But he's going to do more than that. There's a statement on Ellen G. White. I'm going to take a few minutes. I hope that you people can negotiate the time there. And I'm about to finish. Ellen G. White wrote, as we near the close of time, there will be greater and still greater external parade of hidden power. Listen, heathen deities will manifest their signal power and will exhibit themselves before the cities of the world. It's not just that Satan is going to pretend to be Jesus. He's going to bring deities. This was taken from Evangelism 7:05. So if you want to defeat atheism, secularism, even non-Christian religions, the most effective tool is the supernatural. Atheists don't believe in Christ, but all it will take to change their mind is to bring Christ before them and say, touch him. And all of a sudden, atheism, secularism. Could you imagine what would happen if Muhammad comes in person and talks to the Muslims and tell them, Jesus and I, we have been chatting for some time now. I'm coming here to tell you he is really the Son of God. What is going to unify the world is spiritualism. This is the tool that the unholy Trinity will use. Deception. Deception. And the whole world will go. What do we have to defeat secularism, atheism? The Word of God. The Word, the message of the 3 angels. You see 3 angels now? They go with the Word in the hand, telling people, this is what the Lord wants from us. 2 movements at the end. One deceptive, the other based on the word of the Lord. And the second attack is the attempt to physically exterminate the people of God. And it will fail. Revelation 17 says, they will fight against the Lamb, and the Lamb will defeat them. See, this is not about us. We're not so important that the enemy is fighting us. Jesus said, no. He's not fighting you, he's fighting me. And he's going to be defeated. There's much more that we can say. I just want to leave this with you. To see that what you have in Daniel 40 through 45 is developed in Revelation. We don't need the newspapers, although sometimes the newspapers are useful. We don't need to speculate. What we need to do is to compare the two. Ellen G. White says the book of Daniel is explained in the book of Revelation. And I think that in Daniel 11:40 through 45, you have in embryonic form what is going to develop and grow in the book of Revelation. What is important for us is to be firmly established in the truth. And don't allow emotions, this deceptive power of the enemy, to distract you. We are on solid ground. We are faithful to the true Trinity. God bless you.